Hello, and welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 211th New Social Environment. I'm Emily Dean, a production assistant at the Rail, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for the 20th Radical Poetry reading curated by Sharon Olds. We're also thrilled to have poets Leila Chatti, Derricotte, Yusef Komunyakaa, Danez Smith here with us today. To begin, I ask you to join me in acknowledging the Wappinger, Canarsie, Munsee, and Lenni Lenape people of the Delaware Nation and Shinnecock Indian Nation, the traditional owners of Lenape-Hoking, the unceded land and waters on which we stand. Finally, the Brooklyn Rail stands in solidarity with the uprisings in response to the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Nina Pop, David McAdie, James Scurlock, Jamel Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, Rhea Milton, Dominique Remy Fells, Toyin Salau, Walter Wallace Jr., and countless others we have lost to white supremacy and police violence in this country. And acknowledge that justice will come from the streets, from the nation demanding accountability and refusing to move on until Black Lives Matter in the eyes of the state. Before I introduce our first reader, we'd like to begin with a brief moment of silence. Thank you. And today we are just going to jump right into readings. So now to introduce the first reader of today. Leila Chatti is a Tunisian-American poet and author of Deluge, Copper Canyon Press 2020, and the chapbooks Ebb, Akashic Books 2018, and Tunisia Amrikia, the 2017 editor's selection from Bowl City Press. Her honors include a Pushcart Prize, grants from the Barbara Deming Memorial Fund, and the Helene Wurlitzer Foundation, and fellowships from the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown, the Wisconsin Institute for Creative Writing, and Cleveland State University, where she was the Ainsfield Wolf Fellow in Publishing and Writing. She currently teaches at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she is the Mendota Lecturer in Poetry. And her poems appear in the New York Times Magazine, Poetry, Plowshares, Tin House, American Poetry Review, and elsewhere. So Leila, I'm passing you the mic now.
Hi. Okay, I think I'm unmuted. I'm so excited and honored to be here. I'm a little nervous, to be honest, but very excited. When I first was asked to be part of this and think about radical poetry and what radical poetry means to me, I truthfully was a little nervous. I think the word radical, I've always felt that it may be, I didn't have access to it, being Arab and Muslim, coming of age and post 9/11, USA, made me feel really nervous of that word and the consequences of what it might be to be labeled that way. So I've had a really interesting, complex relationship to considering myself to be radical and what it means to be radical. But I was thinking about that a lot recently and thinking about what I write and how it's considered political and feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome. And to think about that, I turned to Adrienne Rich. I just wanted to share a couple quotes that I was thinking about today before I kind of get into reading. I originally thought that I was going to read from my chapbook, Tunisia Amrikia, which more directly engages with government violence, racism, and Islamophobia, because I thought that that was the kind of radical work that I was doing. And then I wanted to really question why I was afraid to own the radicalness of some of my personal work. And that's the work that I felt actually the most resistance about writing, being told that there was not space for work like that that work had been done, that feminism was no longer relevant. And being Arab and Muslim, I knew that the things that I wanted to write about were things that I had not heard spoken about in my community, and that I knew in my home country and other countries, including this one, women writing about their sexuality and writing about their bodies and just existing in a body, are targets of violence. So I wanted to read a quote from Adrienne Rich in her essay, When We Dead Awaken. She says, "I felt that I had either to consider myself a failed woman and a failed poet, or to try to find some synthesis by which to understand what was happening to me." And then she says, in Women in Honor, some notes on lying, "Women have been driven mad, gaslighted for centuries by the refutation of our experiences and our instincts in a culture which validates only male experience. The truth of our bodies and our minds have been mystified to us. We therefore have a primary obligation to each other, not to undermine each other's sense of reality for the sake of expediency, not to gaslight each other. Women have often felt insane when cleaving to the truth of our experience." She says, "We have a profound stake beyond the personal in the project of describing our reality as candidly and fully as we can to each other." So with that in mind, I wanted to read from my collection Deluge, in which I talk about a period of illness, of uterine illness, that I'd been told not to write about, told that it would not be received well. And obviously I did not listen. So the first poem is called Confession, and it begins with an epigraph from Mary in the Quran. She's seen giving birth, and she says to Jesus, she says, "Oh, I wish I had died before this and was in oblivion, forgotten." Truth be told, I like Mary a little better when I imagine her like this, crouched and cursing, a boy god pushing on her cervix. I like remembering she had a cervix, her body ordinary and so like mine. Girl sweat lacing rivulets like veins in the sand. Her small hands on her knees, not doves, but hands, gripping, a palm pressed to her spine, fronds whispering like voyeurs overhead. Oh, Mary, like a god, I too take pleasure in knowing you were not all holy, that ache could undo you like a knot. And suffering, I admire this girl who cared for a moment not about God or his plans, but her own distinct life. This fiercer Mary who'd disappear if it saved her, who'd howl to hell with salvation if it meant this pain. The blessed adolescent who squatted indignant in a desert, bearing his child like a secret she never wanted to hear. Hymen. Second blood, I never knew you. After the first, scoured the bed for your blazoned blot and came up empty. Perhaps I was born without you. A box with no prize inside, a sundae with no cherry on top. God of good girls, God of matrimony, mother state, which I consider a distant country with a discordant tongue, did you speak for God and conclude I hadn't use for you? Once I was small as your kin, so small and for such a long time, longer than I've lived. I fit inside my mother when she fit inside her mother, and so on and so forth, and further, a nest of matrons, me's and a beam, in which to be female is to be something like infinity. And was it determined then what kind of woman I would be? It seems I've always been frightened, little veil, of wedlock's lock clicking shut, the heritable procession of women whispering in the aisle of my pulse, don't do, don't do, don't. And I haven't done. This, the graveman, the grave I've dug with the spade of pleasure. But wanting seal of want, I did want it, did choose to commit my life's greatest transgression with a benevolent accomplice, and so in the here before you could say I'm among the spared. What a mess this messlessness of you could have been in any number of lives my size, billowing specters of dresses on a line of possibility, lives in which I am the bridesmaid and you, maidenhead, the bride given away, where I am the acquired property and you, the red ribbon severed in the threshold, I, the purse, and you, the coin tendered. Perhaps no one ever told you, precious emblem of innocence, simulacrum for honor, that some believe you the most important part of me, vital, like a heart a man gets the thrill of bursting where he can see it, that blood is owed to him. And that's the heart of it, isn't it? Of a woman, you, the only blood worth anything. This poem is called Zina. Verily, it was heaven. I couldn't be certain you would allow me admission, so I sought my own in the body of a man. Verily, I mistook him for you, my Lord. I invoked another God. I invoked another. Before him I prostrated. I proffered myself an oblation, and pleasure coursed through me, angels or an exaltation aroused from sleep. And each part named knew itself and bucked and stamped its feet in praise. And the beast I was glad. Verily, a woman, the first night of nights, I required a man's flesh to come alive. Everywhere his mouth grazed, I was afflated, and each time he touched me, as though making me anew with his own too merciful hands. I'm gonna read from something I don't usually read from, I think because of some of my fears. This poem's called Awra, and it's a long poem. And Awra is it's a term that has to do with covering. And the most well-known, I guess, in the West practice of this is the hijab. But there's a lot more to it than just that. And here are the two epigraphs. So Awra in Arabic means nakedness, taboo, that which is prohibited from public view. From the root meaning defectiveness, weakness, imperfection, blemish. The word has evolved in multiple languages to mean woman. A man who does not know my favorite song opens me like a fig. He has the proper credentials. I have a paper sheet hiked up and my legs spread wide as a wish. My father called it fig. Because of this, I avoid eating them for many years, until after I am sick, at which point I begin to seek out any sanguine fruit-like kin. As a child, upon first identifying herself in a mirror, begins looking hungrily in any bright pain. Feast on pomegranates, blood oranges, raspberries, cherries, plums. The first time I split the skin to reveal its carmine interior, I blush. I feel I am partaking in something vulgar. Assume implicitly my father meant shame, but never make certain. But then I taste it. Its red meat on my tongue. Its ineffable sweetness. In the dark, I search an Arabic dictionary for vagina by the glow of my phone. Touch and touch to keep it from dimming. But it's irrelevant. The word's missing. Find instead where it should be. Diamond, suffering, to make a god. From the Latin, sheath. Sheath implies weapon. Whose weapon? Implies a weapon, subdued. It could be cancer, the doctor says, but you are very young. Does young mean less likely in the circumstance? I ask. The doctor is exasperated. The doctor is an expert in his field. He sighs so that I'm aware. I am bare under paper, a bright bulb. I look down. My feet touch at the toes, like a child's. We're children, we're easily convinced. Sundays, sister teaches us we are sweet, our sweets, bonbons, good goods, unless we're unwrapped, or, heaven forbid, kissed. Who wants a sucker that's already been licked? Pudendum. A person's external genital organs, especially the external genitalia of a woman. Latin translated literally as thing to be ashamed of, from the root meaning to punish. The idea of disease as punishment yielded the idea that a disease could be a particularly appropriate and just punishment. The idea of the disease yielded. The idea, the disease. To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your pain. In pain, your desire will rule over you. Or, this is how I remember it. Some things get damaged when handed down. Some things get damaged when handled. I'm handled by so many men, I begin to believe myself a thing, myself something damaged. When men tell me things, I listen. It's polite, and I am a woman, and this a part of the terms. You learn. When the word of God came down, it came down to a man. I'll not accuse God of lacking imagination, but I will set the accusation down where he can see it. Nevertheless, I take great care to respect the word and words generally, the only place I have ever encountered God, thus something of a sanctuary. Like a child teasing, he refuses to show himself to me, so I must keep calling, keep seeking. I am good, or at least I follow rules. Because I am bleeding, for 2 years I do not touch the word of God, do not enter his house, do not sing his favorite songs, by which I mean pray. I understand the blood as exile and cry out from the island it makes of me. I cry out in the way I am allowed, which is impuling, plaintive sounds. Why, O Lord, have you punished me? Etc., etc. I also distract myself with language as though I might find God in the lacunae between letters and the ink of the letters themselves. Pain does not have a language, but God is where in language pain grew from punishment, like a woman from a rib. What else can you call it but divine, the way ill stems from evil's root, patient from suffering, blessing and blood on the same dark vine. Sister says, God sees all, says, God sees all of us in every room and every house and every hour we enter, says, even in darkness, God sees. In darkness, he is the light that illumes. So cover yourself, even when alone, for God is with you. God who knows what your own self whispers to you. God closer than your jugular vein. In Arabic, blood becomes dem, so with my 2 tongues I conjure both blood and its obstacle. A poet says, repent means the pain again. Sister says, once you touch, he knows, and your hands can never be clean. So what do I do with this ache, my filth, and my hands, stained as they are? My hands, rising instinctive in the morning, like birds, wild with impertinent praise. My hair, awra, so I covered it. My skin, awra, so I covered it. The sound of my voice, awra, so I swallowed it. The sound of my feet, awra, so I stood so still I vanished, just to be sure. And there's some more of that, but I'm gonna cut to the final poem. Thanks for listening. This poem is called Exegesis. I bled. God didn't want to hear about it. He said unclean, and so it was. He said it is harm, and so it was. Want to hear about it? He said unclean. Once a woman wanted, so he did her harm. And so it was first conceived, a woman suffering because a woman wanted. So he said, cursed, and then he said, blessed. The woman chose to suffer, conceived a God, though she never knew a man. And God knows best. If he calls a curse a blessing, then so it is. And he said she was clean. She never knew a man. I've known men, but never a God that bled and lived. But I did. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leila. That was so incredible. Next, we will hear from Toy Derricotte. Toy Derricotte is the author of 2019 National Book Awards finalist I, New and Selected Poems from University of Pittsburgh Press 2019, The Undertaker's Daughter 2011, and 4 earlier collections of poetry, including Tender, winner of the 1998 Patterson Poetry Prize. Her literary memoir, The Black Notebooks, W.W. Norton, received the 1998 Ainsfield Wolf Book Award for nonfiction and was a New York Times Notable Book of the Year. Her honors include, among many other, the 2012 Patterson Poetry Prize for Sustained Literary Achievement, the 2012 PEN/Volkner Award for Poetry, the Lucille Medwick Memorial Award from the Poetry Society of America, 3 Pushcart Prizes, and the Distinguished Pioneering of the Arts Award from the United Black Artists. Professor Emerita at the University of Pittsburgh, Derricotte co-founded Cave Canem Foundation with Cornelius Eady, served on the Academy of American Poets Board of Chancellors, and currently serves on Cave Canem's Board of Directors, Marsh Hawk Press's Artistic Advisory Board, and the Advisory Board of Alice Jane's Books. Toy, over to you.
Thanks so much. Wow, that was an incredible reading. Thank you so much. I guess what I want to say about radical poetry is, first of all, I have to mention Cave Canem, the amazing poets who I think are changing American poetry and contributing so much to not only literature, but just the room to breathe and live and celebrate and grieve for all of us. I think especially for African-American poets. I'm going to read new work, and what I was thinking about, for me, what's changed in 50 years of writing is, just for me as a writer, is my comfort with form. When I was a new writer, I struggled. In fact, for so many years, I've struggled with form. And I notice now it seems easier for the younger poets to use traditional forms. I always found myself thinking of traditional forms as those things that represented the thing about poetry that made me always feel that as a Black woman, I was supposed to be silent. I sort of took form as the objectification of that thing that I felt was holding me down and stopping me from being a writer. So on the one hand, I wanted to honor form and find form that would fit me. And at the same time, I was very angry and resistant to form. So now I find that's really changed. I think it's part of the times, but I also think I'm more comfortable with myself. And I think after many years of having this internal war, it's more resolved in the outside as well as the inside. So I'll read a couple newer poems. Questions about my birth certificate. Name Twinette Marie Webster. Sex FE. Number of months of pregnancy 9. Is mother married? Yes. DOB 4/12/41. County Wayne, State Michigan. Village or city Hamtramck. Name of hospital St. Francis. Father Benjamin Webster. Color B1. Age at time of this birth 29. Birthplace Franklin, Kentucky. Occupation mortician. Mother full maiden name Antonia Baquet. Color B1. Age at time of this birth 24. Birthplace Beaumont, Texas. Occupation housewife. Does B1 mean black one? Did someone type B10 for the color of the other parents? What's the difference? Who decided my parents' color? The black doctor who delivered me or the white nurse who typed the form? I was the first black baby born in an all-white Catholic hospital in Hamtramck, Michigan, a Polish village in the middle of Detroit. What was my mother's labor like? How did the white nurses respond to the cries of the first black woman in the maternity ward? Did they come in and say the usual kind words, but with a little crimp in the throat? All my mother'd remember was the pain. Things got blurry during the middle passage. So much before and after was lost. There was so much to forget. After my husband's birth, my mother-in-law's doctor explained that he didn't give drugs because black women were like horses. They didn't feel pain. Maybe she was a B2. My mother was a B1. She got so many drugs that she sat up on the table laughing hysterically. She had to be calmed down like a horse. She had to be put in a dark room with a heavy blanket over her. At birth, the skin and eyes are lighter. You'd need a chart on the wall to measure gradations to hold the skin up to. Perhaps B1 indicates straight light hair, ghost white skin, and blue eyes. Perhaps B2 indicates straight hair, cream skin, and blue eyes. Perhaps B3 indicates soft curls, antique white skin, and light brown or smoky irises. Perhaps B4 indicates wavy hair, seashell skin, brown or dark blue black irises. Perhaps B5, wavier hair, touch of the tar brush, nose, brown or blue black irises all the way down to B10, tight as a corkscrew, curls and no doubt about it, sir, wide nose, and skin as black as outer space. A nurse from South Carolina told me there was a chart that said, if in doubt, check the size of the baby's genitals. Dear person of authority, please indicate on this line this baby's degree of worthiness to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Dear God, dear person, dear parents, dear anybody. Heard on the auction block. 1, if I'm going to be sold, I'd rather be a B1. 2, I was disappointed that I didn't bring a higher price. Who assigns you value? Who whispers in your ear? My mother said when they handed me to her, she whispered, I will never be alone again. She needed someone to accompany her through the conflagration. She had been 18 alone, a B1 in 1933 in Louisiana when her mother died. She needed an angel, a powerful one, Mary or God, to be with her when it happened. 1, when she found her mother dead at 43, scrubbing a white woman's floor. 2, when she was raped as a child, which she would never open her mouth about, but I believe happened because of the way she treated our bodies like raging secrets. 3, on her way to school when she was beaten up on the white side of town for being a stuck-up little yellow nigger, and then beaten up when she crossed over the line to the black part for the same thing. 4, on the train Would she sit in the white or black section? 5. Did the white real estate dealer think of her as a B1? What if B1s and B10s are the same to a real estate dealer? She was so afraid that the possibilities would be taken away, possibilities that had been given back reluctantly, like owning your own body or a nice house. It made her skittery. My mother must have been thinking of her body every week when she scrubbed on her hands and knees inside the corners of the bathroom and under the toilet. Pee stains are a telltale sign with that little angel hovering over her head like a fruit fly. I don't want to die with my bed unmade. I don't want the white people in my building to find me dead and whisper that all along I was the B10 they expected. Does being a B10 make you paranoid? If some babies have a birth certificate with just a letter and no number, and if after color it just says W, how does the little difference change the self that emerges like a butterfly? I am a poet. I am the co-founder of a successful organization. I'm an old woman getting ready to die. I'm in good shape for my age. I've worked hard all my life, like my mother did, like my grandmother. I've accomplished something. You can see what I've done. My mother used to stand at the door after the floor was polished. She'd look at the placement of the chairs, tables, at the cut glass ashtrays, at the bisque figurines, and if necessary, go back and adjust them slightly. Dear God, I try to believe in you. Every morning, I surrender to something bigger than myself. But every time I see it happen, every time, I wonder if you know what the fuck you're doing. And one more. This is a newer one. Just a couple weeks old, so I'm still working on it. Learning how Black I was. Miss Mary Mac, all dressed in black, black with silver buttons, buttons all down her back. That was one of the games we second grade Black girls were good at. The crowd of white girls stood at the back of the playground and watched, not knowing what to do with their hands, their feet, how to begin to make their bodies and their voices rhyme, off rhyme, how to slap, how to rhyme, how to hit, how to make the line break subtle and at the same time crisp to make the beat surprising, the way Black prisoners broke stones, moaning every whoop, a note, a secret passed down from slaves, how to go slightly ahead or behind. That's what the white girls didn't know how to listen for. And though I could hear it and understand what it meant, the bottom of my feet wouldn't move upward fast enough, as if the angel just couldn't lift me up by my good hair. I must have slipped out of her hands, but I could feel myself flying up my spine into my head bones. I could lift almost as high and feel what it would be like to be Mary, straight and proud, Mary, good and free. On Sesame Street, Maya Angelou taught the children ring games she played growing up in the Deep South, not too long ago, not too long since slavery. Little Sally Walker sitting in a saucer. Rise, Sally, rise. Wipe your weeping eyes. Put your hands on your hips and let your backbone slip. In second grade, when I first learned how Black I was, I stood on the side admiring, trying to learn how to let my backbone slip, uncoiling from the saucer, proudly wiping away tears as if I wasn't afraid or shamed or in the least out of control. Just by singing, you could make yourself your own. And I was learning how to make my body black, black, black. My hands would stumble on the rhymes, like my minds would stumble for years on line breaks, trying to get the rhythm in tune with my body. I thought of little Sally all alone in the bottom of the boat, of the stranger who would come and take her, and everyone in the circle knew how to make her better. The accomplishment of being on time every time. Oh, shake it to the east. Oh, shake it to the west. Ah, shake it to the very one that you love the best. You rhyme, not on the end word, but on that additional symbol thrown out in outer space, because you know the next line is always there to get you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Toy. That was so amazing. Next, we will hear from Yusef Komunyakaa. Yusef Komunyaka's numerous books of poems include Pleasure Dome, New and Collected Poems 1975 to 1999, Talking Dirty to the Gods, Thieves of Paradise, which was a finalist for the National Books Critics Award, Neon Vernacular, New and Selected Poems 1977 to 1989, for which he received a Pulitzer Prize and the Kingsley Tufts Poetry Award. Magic City, Dinky Dow, which won the Darkroom Poetry Prize. I Apologize for the Eyes in My Head, winner of the San Francisco Poetry Center Award, Copacetic, and most recently, the Emperor of Water Clocks. Komunyaka's prose is collected in Blue Notes, essays, interviews, and commentaries. His honors include the William Faulkner Prize from the University Rennes, the Thomas Fourcade Award, and the Haynes Poetry Prize, fellowships from the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown, the Louisiana Arts Council, and the National Endowment for the Arts, and the Bronze Star for his service in Vietnam when he served as a correspondent and managing editor of the Southern Cross. Yusef Komunyakaa is a senior faculty member in the NYU Creative Writing Program. And Yusef, I'm passing you the mic now.
It's good to be here. Radical. Well, it's the rut, perhaps, of a state of being, but also the one who's radical never faces the mirror and says, I'm radical. And for the poet, I think someone else defines that category. The work speaks for itself. I think I have to go back to my great grandfather when he said he only worked for himself as a carpenter, a brick mason, and a farmer. And he always voted. So maybe that's where my feeling about radical, and just let the work speak for itself. I'm a short reader, okay? When eyes are on me, I'm a scrappy old lion who's wandered into a Christian square, quavering with centuries of forged bells. The cobblestones make my feet ache. I walk big-shouldered, my head raised proudly. I smell the blood of a king. The citizen can only see a minotaur in a maze. I know more than a lion should know. My roar goes back to the Serengeti, to when a savanna was craggy ice, but now it frightens only pigeons from a city stoop. They believe they know my brain's contours and grammar. Don't ask me how I know the signs engraved on a sundial, the secret icons behind the gaze. I wish their crimes hadn't followed me here. I can hear their applause in the dusty citadel. I know what it took to master the serpent and wheel, the crossbow and spinal tap. Once I was a leopard beside a stone gate. I'm a riddle to be unraveled. I am not, and I am. When their eyes are on me, I become whatever is judged badly. I circle the poet. Hunger shapes my keen sense of smell. A lifetime ahead. They will follow my paw prints till they're lost in snow at dusk. If I walk in circles, I hide from my shadow. They plot stars to know where to find me. I am a prodigal bird perched on the peak of a guardhouse. I have a message for fate. The sunlight has shown me the guns, and their beautiful sons are deadly. Blue dementia. In the days when a man could hold a swarm of words inside his belly, nestled against his spleen, singing. In the days when night riders tongue a reed till blues and sorrow song call out of the deep night, another man done gone, another man done gone. In the days when one could lose oneself all up inside love that way, then moaned on the bone till the guards cried out in someone's sleep. Today, already I've seen 3 dark-skinned men discussing the weather with demons and angels, gazing up at clouds and squinting down into iron grates along the fast streets of luminous encounters. I double-check my reflection in plate glass and wonder, am I passing another Lucky Thomason, a Marion Brown cornered by a blue dementia, another dark-skinned man who woke up dreaming one morning and then walked out of himself dreaming? Did this one dare to step on a crack in the sidewalk, to turn a midnight corner and never come back whole? Or did he try to stare down a look that shoved a blade into his heart? I mean, I also know something about night riders and catgut. Yeah, honey, I know something about talking with ghosts. Next poem I'm going to read is written by Myron O'Higgins, young poet. Somebody cut his hair and sent him out to play. Someone, while there is time, call him down from his high place. Tell me, before terror marks his face, he will belong to the hunted. Say, he will be betrayed, or high on some fruited hill, die naked with thieves. Go to him while fire is in his flesh. take him whole and kiss his young mouth into wisdom and healing. Okay, the next poem is a kind of praise poem in a way. I think praise poems are often rather radical. The DAC. I have almost nailed my left thumb to the 2x phrase that holds the deck together. This Saturday morning in June, I have sold 2x6s, T-squared, and levered everything with 3 bubbers sealed in green glass. And now the sweat on my tongue tastes like what I am. I know I'm alone, using leverage to swing the long boards into place, but at times it seems as if there are 2 of us working side by side like old lovers guessing each other's moves. This hammer is the only thing I own of yours, and it makes me feel I've carpentered for years. Even the crooked nails are going in straight. The handsaw glides through grease. The toenail studs hold. The deck has risen up around me, and now it's strong enough to support my weight, to not sway with that old silly wrong-footed dance I'm about to throw my whole body into, plumb from sky to ground. This morning's work can take nearly anything. With so much uproar and punishment, footwork and euphoria, I'm almost happy this Saturday. I walk back inside and here you are, plain and simple as the sunlight on the tools outside. Daddy, if you had come back a week ago, or day before yesterday, I would have been ready to sit down and have a long talk with you. There are things I wanted to say, so many questions I wanted to ask, but they have been answered with as much salt and truth as we can expect from the living. And just one last poem, which is also a kind of praise poem as well, Anodyne. I love how it swells into a temple where it is held prisoner, for the god of blame resides. I love slopes and peaks, the secret paths that make me selfish. I love my crooked feet, shaped by vanity and worked shoes made to outlast belief, the hardness, coupling milk it can't fashion. I love the lips, salt and honeycomb on the tongue, the hair holding off rain and snow, the white moons on my fingernails. I love how everything begs blood into song and prayer. Inside an egg, a ghost hums through my bones like Pan's midnight flute, shaping internal laws beside a troubled river. I love this body, made to weather the storm in the brain, raised out of the deep smell of the fish and water hyacinth, out of rapture and the first regret. I love my big hands. I love it clear down to the soft, quick motor of each breath, the liver's 10 kinds of desire, and the kidney's lust for sugar, the skin, the sack of dong and joy, the spleen floating like a compass needle inside nighttime, always divining West Africa's dusty horizon. I love this. I love the birthmark pose like a fighting cock on my right shoulder blade. I love this body, this solo, in ragtime jubilee behind the left nipple, because I knew I was born to wear out at least 100 angels. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yusef. That was incredible. Next, we will hear from our curator for the day. Sharon Olds was born in San Francisco and educated at Stanford University and Columbia University. She is the author of 13 books of poetry, including most recently Arias 2019, Odes 2016, and Stag's Leap 2012, winner of the Pulitzer Prize and England's T.S. Eliot Prize. Her other honors include the inaugural San Francisco Poetry Center Award for her first book, Satan Says, 1980, and the National Book Critics Circle Award for her second, The Dead and the Living, 1983, which was also the Lamont Poetry Selection for 1983. The Father, 1992, was shortlisted for the T.S. Eliot Prize in England, and the Unswept Room, 2002, was a finalist for the National Book Award and the National Book Critics Circle Award. Olds teaches in the Graduate Creative Writing Program at New York University and helped to found the NYU Workshop Program for residents of the Coler-Goldwater Hospital on Roosevelt Island and for veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan. She lives in New York City, and I'm passing you the mic now.
Unmute? Am I
Okay.
unmute?
Yeah.
All right, all right. I am so grateful and moved to be here and to have heard what we have heard and what we're about to hear. It's poetry that makes life possible for me these days. I'm so touched and so grateful, and we're always abashed. That's okay. We'll work with that. Thank you. Thank you. I actually, while you were reading, Yusef, it crystallized for me what I've been hearing in the others, and we'll hear in Danez when they read theirs. If I were dead and this were heaven, I would have no complaints. I would listen all eternity to this and to the meaning of this. So I was on my way home from the doctor to see if my left thumb was broken or not today. And I looked around the car and I thought, I'm always having doubts about poetry. But those doctors and nurses today, they didn't give me any pain. They wanted to mitigate my pain. They wanted to make my thumb work again. And I thought, if I can ever do that in a poem, that's good. That's good. And for all of us to try to spread the possibility of making our lives into poems to the children and the old. And so I also thought on my way home that none of the poems that I chose for today, to read today, had anything to do with a rich white woman beating her daughter. It was as if in the last 2 years I've written enough of that, or I've come out the other side of this. And so I'm going to read 4 poems, and the first one is titled From the Day It Was Written, and it's called January 1st, 2021. Climbing the stairs slowly on my palms and soles bent far forward, I see my shins closer than I usually see them. Their indigo and red violet fireworks, their royal blue wormholes. And I think, How much difference is there anymore between me and a cadaver? I know I won't come after I'm dead, though it does seem a little strange to me. And it's strange to me that what we learned in 7th grade health, desire, sex, reproduction, is not a structural part of each of us as much as heartbeat and breath, not a part of individual survival. Sometimes people die of a heart attack in bed. I think my mother's father did with his mistress at a party. Then they said to his wife he had fallen down the cellar stairs that weren't there, walked through the cellar door into nothing. I told my son that in his late 40s, when he said, I never told him anything about my family. And he said, what did they do then? Throw him through the cellar door? I had never thought of that. This morning, in a dream, his father came into a restaurant after the others. I was waiting on the banquette, and I saw him at a distance, taller than anyone, and with that light in the air around his face I had seen once when I arrived late to meet him. It was not his whiteness. I had seen it around my boyfriend's face in high school. With Joey, I thought it was genius, inspiration, almost like possession, and I think it was. With my ex, I thought it was goodness, but I think it was sexual love and the illusion his tolerance for me would be lifelong. I don't remember the last time we made love before I moved into the living room when I believed he was going to leave me. I didn't know it was the last time, but it was like all the other times, sweet and complete and wrenching. Though I think I said after the series of orgasms, one more, and did he kiss me or smile or grunt? And I came again, although I was dead. See, I wanted to read that because there's something about it that really pleases me. And it could be that like I'm a bad person, or it could be just that I never thought of writing that before. And I think that's part of the joy for some of us of letting our imaginations go. Sometimes, yeah, apparently almost in the service only of the self. That's not so good. So, Toy, when you talked about form, you and I haven't talked about this, but I've been writing a lot of ballads since I went to Emily Dickinson's house and they let me sit in her bedroom. And they didn't know I was going to slide under her bed when no one was there because, no, it's nothing hot. It's just when I was a child, I woke up under the bed every morning. I didn't remember going there, but I did. And so I wanted to read one of those ballads because something was happening with returning to the rhythm of the church hymns that I sang. Amherst Ballad II. I've never read anyone want any of these ballads before. Amherst Ballad II. I did not shave to visit your town, though hirsute was my jaw, but shocked the root of each mustache and turned its brine to lie. Thus could approach your door and knock with smooth and beardless skin, and not a barbarous mean insert, nor hedgehog porcupine. Oh, to have known as pirate girls each other's reckless truth, before the bristle spiked my chin and robbed some virgin wrath. I'd sat with scissors many years and cut out pretty things and pasted them into a book. And then when age 8 came, went to the circus with my class. The clowns stared bold and clear, came home and cut each eyelash off tiptoe to the mirror. Since any beauty I could have would not be of my visage, but drawn or writ on paper, stricter hieroglyph. I wish I would have danced with you on Wild Goose Pond, cream of the moon. And now I learn more truth of you. I call myself your own. I used to feel I was busy calling myself not Emily Dickinson's, partly because I was so afraid of her because she was so smart. And I was so tall and it just didn't seem to work. But then I had a wonderful dream and about her foot, her just own foot, one of her feet. And then I got out of bed and I saw my own foot. And I was thinking of trochees, you know, I was thinking of what's it called, broken field rhythm. But then when I saw my foot and realized she had a naked left foot, not that different from mine, just half the size of it, I felt suddenly close to her for life. Not that she would like me, but that I could thank her. How am I for time? Do I have time for 3 more or 2 more? Jen is too nice to say. I'll read the one I was going to read and the one I decided to read once I started listening. Sorry. Sound effects of glass and water. This Zoom is kind of, hello. So, Ode to the Clitoris. Little eagerness, flower girl basket of soft thorn and petal near the entry of the satin column of the inner aisle. Scout in the wilderness, wild ear which perks up, tender dowser which points, imp shapeshifter, bench pressing biceps of a teeny goddess who is buff, lotus for grief, wheat-sea Minerva who springs full armored, molten. I did not know you at 7. I thought you were God's way of addressing me when I kept swinging on the rings after the bell had rung. There's those girls dancing. He didn't use his words, he used you to get my attention. He wrenched me and wrenched me then in 6 or 7 wrenches of my body and brain. You, the living wrench which winched the wrenches. Later, you would do it without God, with boys, with kisses, and later you'd become an instrument of love's music. Today, I saw your portrait for the first time, your dorsal vein, your artery, your cavernous body, your vestibular bulb, your suspensory ligament, and I could see how evolution got the idea from you to invent an organ something like you, but a lot bigger. You were named for a Greek hill, Clinine, a slope. You are the ground of our being, the tiny figure of the human, the hooded stranger who comes to the door, and if we bless her, we will be blessed. And then, I mean, this is just so much, too much of a thing, but I got the idea and I thought, yes, this next one I wrote like 2 years later. I hadn't thought of writing it. And then I'll close my part with the short one. So 2 years later, Ode to the Penis. Someone told me that what I write about men is objectifying. So I ask you, oh, general idea of the penis, who stand in the mind, erect and not, old and young, for all your representations, oh, abstract principle, haven't you maybe been waiting for your turn to be praised? I think you're lovely and brave and so interesting. You're like a creature with your head and trunk, as if you have a life of your own, but you are innocent, You are not your own man. You are no more responsible for your actions than the matter of the brain for its thoughts. And you've had a mixed history. You've been taken into carnage as the instrument of it, and you yourself have been played to produce the desperate screams. Often you have not been protected, nor used to protect, and oft not been respected, nor wielded to respect. And yet most of your history has been spent in joy. And I wonder how it has felt being so adored as you have been and feared, and what it is like for you if you could look down from your platonic cloud of categories when two of you are engaged together or married, yourself primed, yourself to your own power. And being a concept, are you smart? Do you know you're equal to your sister concept, and even that you came from her back at the invention of the separate male, the ovaries heavying down toward the earth, the organ of orgasm growing and growing? I cannot imagine you from within, but as a sage said of a god, I do not want to be sugar, I want to taste sugar. But that's just my heteromania talking. And you're not homo or hetero or visible or manifest. You do not exist except as an imaginary quorum of all your instances. So I'm not flirting with you. I'm just saying I like you, not as an object, but a subject, a prime mover, a working theory of plumbing and ecstasy, a boy's pride and anxiety, wind sock of zephyr and gale, half of the equation of creation. Thank you, my darlings, my met and as yet unmet friends, all the family. Thank you. In a minute, we get to hear them read Danez Smith's poems. I'll close with this. For you. In the morning, when I'm pouring the hot milk into the coffee, I put the side of my face near the convex pitcher to watch the last round drop from the spout. And it feels like being cheek to cheek with a baby. Sometimes the orb pops back up, a ball of cream balanced on a whale's watery exhale. Then I gather the tools of my craft, the cherry sounding board tray for my lap, like the writing arm of a desk, the phone, the bird book for looking up the purple martin. I repeat them as I seek them so as not to forget. Tray, cell phone, purple martin, tray, phone, Martin, Trayvon, Martin. Song was invented for you. All art was made for you. Painting, writing was yours, our youngest, our most precious, to remind us to shield you. All was yours. All that is left on earth with your body was for you.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Oh. Thank you. That was amazing. We are next going to hear from our last reader of the reading, Danez Smith. Danez Smith is a Black queer pause writer and performer from St. Paul, Minnesota. Danez is the author of Homie, Grey Wolf Press 2020, Don't Call Us Dead, Grey Wolf Press 2017, winner of the Forward Prize for Best Collection, the Midwest Booksellers' Choice Award, and a finalist for the National Book Award, and Insert Boy from Yes Yes Books 2014, winner of the Kate Tufts Discovery Award and the Lambda Literary Award for Gay Poetry. They are the recipient of fellowships from the Poetry Foundation, the McKnight Foundation, the Montalvo Arts Center, Cave Canem, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Danez's work has been featured widely, including on BuzzFeed, The New York Times, PBS NewsHour, Best American Poetry, Poetry Magazine, and on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Danez has been featured as a part of Forbes' annual 30 Under 30 list and is the winner of a Pushcart Prize. They are a member of the Dark Noise Collective and the co-host of VS with Franny Choi, a podcast sponsored by the Poetry Foundation and Post Loudness. Danez, I am passing you the mic now.
Thank you, Emily. Hi, everybody on the video and in the chat. I'm a little giddy right now. I feel like I'm about to read sad ass, like serious poems, and so I shouldn't be smiling so much. But this has been such a wonderful reading. Like Sharon, thank you so much for inviting all of us here to be in this space. You know, when you call, we run. And to Ms. Sharon, Ms. Toy, Mr. Yusef, and Leila, it's such an honor to read with y'all. Oh my God, like Leila, I've loved your work for a while, and I've looked forward to this reading just to get to hear you. I've never got to sit in a room with your poems, and to the elders, like y'all are literal, like y'all, I don't know what to say to y'all. Y'all have saved so many of us with the things you built and the things you've written. And y'all are still writing so much. Like Toy is writing the best poems of her life, and it's like crazy. And like Sharon is like still like giving you like books and books and books. It's like just crazy. It's like, what the fuck is going on? So thank y'all so much for like shining a light about like what it means to like live a long, good life in this thing that's poetry, and how we can use that life and that gift to like for the betterment of the rest of the world around us. So thank y'all so much. All right, poems. I too, like everybody, was shocked. Like not shock, the type of shock where you're like, I can't believe this is happening, and of course it's happening, of white people raiding the Capitol to take selfies. And you know, it's like all the information that comes out, it's like both a joke, more and more a joke, and more insidious the more kind of info that comes out about what was going to go on or what could have went on. And I can only write poems about this. I was talking about this with a friend, and I was like, you know, Black people could never do that without like years of planning and like, you know, trying to like a commitment to die. And I wrote a poem about it years ago, not thinking about it. All right, this poem is called My Poems. My poems are fed up and getting violent. I whisper to them, tender, tender, bridge, bridge, but they say, bitch, ain't no time. Make me a weapon. I hold a poem to a judge's neck until he's not a judge anymore. I tuck a poem next to my dick, sneak it on the plane. A poem goes off in the Capitol. I raise a glass in unison. I mail a poem to 3/4 the Senate. They choke off the scent. My mentor said once, a poem can be whatever you want it to be. So I buried the poem in the river and the body in the fire. I poem a Nazi I went to college with in the jaw until his face hangs a bone tambourine. I poem 10 police a day. I poem the mayor with my bare hands. I poem the hands off the men who did what they know they did. I poem a racist woman into a whistle and feel only a little bad. I poem the president on live TV. His head raised above my head. I say, Baldwin said. I call my loves and ask for their list. I poem them all. I poem them all with a grin, bitch. Poemed into a chair. Handless, volts ready to run me. When they ask me what I regret, I poem multitudes, multitudes, multitudes. All right. I'm gonna read some sections from a long poem that starts my previous collection. It's from a world, it takes place in a world that imagines an afterlife that is exclusive to Black men and boys killed by the police, vigilantes, other avatars of white violence or white supremacy. This poem is called Summer Somewhere. Somewhere, a sun. Below, boys brown as rye play the dozens and ball, jump in the air and stay there. Boys become new moons, gum dark on all sides, beg bruise blue water to fly, at least tide, at least spit back a father or two. I won't get started. History is what it is. It knows what it did. Bad dog, bad blood, bad day to be a boy, color of a July well spent. But here, not earth, not heaven. We can't recall our white shirts turned ruby gowns. Here, there's no language for officer or law, no color to call white. If snow fell, it fall black. Please don't call us dead. Call us alive someplace better. We say our own names when we pray. We go out for sweets and come back. This is how we are born. Come morning, after we cipher, feast, hoop, we dig a new one from the ground, take him out his tree box, shake worms from his braids. Sometimes they'll sing a trap god hymn, what a first breath. Sometimes it's the eyes who lead, scanning for bone flesh men in blue. We say, congrats, you're a boy. Again, we give him a do-rag, a bowl, a second chance, send him off to wander for a day or ever let him pick out his new name. That boy was Trayvon, now called Rain King. That man, Sean, named himself I Do. Oh, the imagination of a new reborn boy, but most of us settle on alive. Sometimes a boy is born right out the sky, dropped from a bridge between starshine and clay. One boy showed up, pulled behind a truck, a parade for himself and his wet red train. Years ago, we plucked brothers from branches, peeled their naps from bark. Sometimes a boy walks into his room, then walks out into his new world, still clutching wicked metal. Some boys waded here through their own blood. Does it matter how he got here? If we're all here to dance, grab a boy, spin him around. If he asks for a kiss, kiss him. If he asks where he is, say gone. Do you know what it's like to live on land that loves you back? No need for geography now. We safe everywhere. Point to whatever you please and call it church, home, or sweet love. Paradise is a world where everything is a sanctuary and nothing is a gun. Here, if it grows, it knows its place in history. Yesterday, a poplar told me of old forests heavy with fruit that I'd call uncle, bursting red pulp and set afire, harvest of dark wind chimes. After I fell, it bandaged my wounds and sap. The forest is a flock of boys who never got to grow up, blooming into forever. Afros like maple crowns, reaching sap slow towards sky. Watch forest run in the rain, branches melting into paper soft curls. Duck under the mountain for shelter. Watch the mountain reveal itself a boy. Watch mountain and forest playing in the rain. Watch the rain melt everything into a boy with brown eyes and wet naps. The lake turns into a boy in the rain, the swamp, a boy in the rain, the fields of lavender, brothers dancing between the storm. How old am I? Today. I'm as old as whatever light touches me. Some nights I'm new as the fire at my feet. Some nights I'm a star, glamorous, ancient, already extinguished, we citizens of an unpopular heaven in low-attended crucifixions. Listen, I've accepted what was given to me, be it my name or my ender's verdict. When I was born a bullseye. I spent my life arguing how I mattered until it didn't matter. Who knew my haven would be my coffin? Dead is the safest I've ever been. I've never been so alive. There, I drowned. Back before, once. There, I knew how to swim, but couldn't. There, men stood by shore and watched me blue. There, I was a dead fish, the river's prince. There, I had a face, and then I didn't. There, my mother cried over me, open casket, but I wasn't there. I was here by my own water, singing a song I learned somewhere south of somewhere worse, but that was when direction mattered. Now everywhere I am is the center of everything. I must be the Lord of something. What was I before? A boy, a son, a warning, a myth. I whistled. Now I'm the god of whistling. I built my Olympia downstream, and you're not welcome here. Trust, the trip will kill you. Go home. We earned this paradise by a death we didn't deserve, and I'm sure that there are other heres, a somewhere for every kind of somebody. A heaven of brown girls braiding on golden stoops. But someone prayed we'd rest in peace. And here we are, in peace, whole, all summer. Whew, thank y'all. All right, I'm gonna read one more and then go back to our days. All right, cool. All right, yeah, this one, okay. All right, oh, not 10 more poems. That one was long as fuck. All right, tight. And I didn't read the whole thing. That's like a quarter. All right. This is the last poem. I'm so grateful for y'all for this afternoon. I feel electric, which is good because I gotta go. Essays suck because sometimes editors like send you back an email and are like, I need 4 more sentences. And you're just like, I said it all. So I'm gonna go take this electricity from today and put it into those 4 sentences that I need to spend this afternoon writing. Okay, cool. This poem is called As We Get This One Out, and who knows when he will leave. And as we return to, another white man, I'm thinking always about what it means for like us to like build a nation, for those of us who like are maybe like excluded out of like nationality and nationhood here, who that nation is and like who we can like elect to like, bring about every day. This poem is called My President. Today, I elect Jonathan, 11 and already making roads out of water. He's a young genius, blog writer, little community activist, curls tight as pinky swears, black as my nation. I trust the world in his tender, blooming hands. I trust him to tell us which rivers are safe to drink and which hold fish like a promise. And I elect Eve Ewing, who I know would misfrizzle the country into one big classroom where grandmas finger paint the national budget and uncles stand around smoking blacks, plotting on stars for our escape. She could walk to the podium at her inauguration and say, the future is now. And we'd all marvel at the sun and moon looping the sky like a GIF as the cars learn to fly and our skin grew bulletproof. proof. And Colin Kaepernick is my president, who kneels on the air, bent toward a branch, throwing apples down to the children and vets. And Rihanna is my president, walking out of global summits with a wine glass still in hand, our taxes returned in gold to dust our faces into coins. And my mama is my president, her grace stunts on amazing brown hands, breaking brown bread over mouths of the sick until there are none unfed. And my grandma is my president, and her cabinet is her cabinet, because she knows to trust what the pan knows, how the skillet wins the war. And the man I saw high kicking his way down the river, he is my president. And the trans girl making songs in her closet, spinning the dark into a booming dress, she too is my president. And Shonda Rhimes is my president, and Nate Marshall is my president, and Trina is my president, and the boys outside Walgreens selling candy for a possibly fictional basketball team are my presidents. And the bus driver who stops after you yell, "Wait!" only twice is my prez. And dude at the pizza spot who will give you a free slice if you are down to wait for him to finish the day's fourth prayer is my president. And my auntie, only a few months clean, but clean, she is my president. And my neighbor who holds the door open when my arms are full of laundry is my president. And every head nod is my president, and every child singing summer with a red sweet tongue is my president. And the birds and the cooks and the single moms especially, and the weed dealers and the teachers and the meter maid who lets you slide, and the cab drivers who stop, and the nurses' swollen feet, and the braiders' exhausted hands, and the bartender and Beyonce and all her kids, and the rabbi and the sad girls, and the leather daddy who always stops to say good morning, and the boy crying on the train, and the sudden abuela who rubs his back, and the uncle who offers him water, and the drag queen who begins to hum, "Oh, my presidents, my presidents, my presidents, my presidents, show me to our nation. My only border is my body. I sing your names, your names, my mighty anthem." Thank you, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danez. Wow, that was amazing. The electricity is really here too. And thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Yusef. Thank you, Toy. Thank you, Leila, for such incredible readings. It's really a treat to hear you all together. And thank you, Sharon, for bringing this group of poets together. And thank you to everyone who tuned in today. This October marked the Rail's 20th anniversary, and we'll be celebrating all the way into 2021. So please consider making a year-end contribution to keep the Rail and our special projects free, relevant, and independent, like the NSE Lunchtime Series and We the Immigrants Project. Every amount matters to us, and you can check the chat for more information or ask one of our team. And please join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. for Common Ground, Jonas Mekas, Filming Independence, Lithuania and the Collapse of the USSR, a conversation on refilming history as subjective media archaeology with Kelly Taxter, Lucas Brasiskis, Avi Lubin, and Philippe Elaine Mikhaud, moderated by Francesco Urbano Bergazzi. You now should all have the ability to turn on your microphone and say goodbye as you leave. Thank you all so much.
Thank Thank you
so
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
everyone.
This was really beautiful.
So much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Shelley and Martha.
Thank you.
Hi, Paul.
Danez, you're my president. You're my
Danez for
president, Danez.
president.
Thank you, everybody.
Danez, you're my president.
Beautiful.